Hello everyone. Today we continue following the next chapter in the emotional, suspenseful, and intense journey of the single mother, Dieu Han. After the recent traumatic events, the curtain of mystery is slowly being lifted. The mastermind behind the kidnapping is beginning to reveal themselves. However, that doesn't mean safety is within reach. Danger still lurks around Han, the fragile yet resilient woman. Early the next morning, after receiving a report of a kidnapping with signs of extortion, the local police quickly arrived at the scene. They documented the current state of the place, took detailed photos, and began collecting witness statements from nearby residents. Coincidentally, Han and Thand were on their way back to the house where the incident had occurred. One of the officers, noticing a familiar face among the crowd, approached her. "Are you Han?" Han nodded softly. "Yes, I'm the victim of last night's abduction." Hearing this, the officer invited both Han and Thand inside to provide statements for the investigation. As Han stepped into the house she knew so well, her steps faltered. Everything inside remained the same, yet the air had changed completely. Gone was the peace and warmth, replaced by a heavy, cold tension. The officer pulled out his notebook, carefully clicked his pen, and asked in a calm, low voice, as if trying not to overwhelm her, "Can you tell me everything that happened last night? Start from the moment you felt something wasn't right." Han took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. One by one, images and memories returned. She began recounting the strange noise she heard from the kitchen, then how a stranger suddenly burst in and tried to overpower her. She didn't forget to describe the moment when Thand appeared and saved her from danger. And then she mentioned something that made the room grow noticeably colder: the strange and sudden disappearance of Dieuhan. The officer listened carefully, jotting down every detail. Occasionally, he looked up to ask about crucial moments, his pen gliding across the paper without pause. The atmosphere thickened with every word. Outside on the porch, Thand sat silently, his eyes fixed on the closed door of the room where Han was reliving her trauma. After about 30 minutes, the officer closed his notebook and stood up. His expression remained composed, but his tone carried weight. "Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Han. Your statement is very important. We'll continue the investigation. In the meantime, please stay indoors and avoid going out alone. And if you hear anything about the girl named Dieuhan, contact us immediately." Han nodded again. Her eyes were still red, but a flicker of calm had returned to her expression. As the officers left, silence once again filled the home. And in that silence, the pounding heart of a single mother echoed one who was slowly being drawn into the dark spiral of a dangerous truth, still waiting to be uncovered. That very night, the police launched their operation. After a full day of urgent investigation, they finally uncovered the trail of two suspects believed to be involved in the recent kidnapping and extortion case. Hidden in the cover of thick bushes, two plainclothes officers kept a close eye on every move. The air was tense and bitterly cold, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the sound of wind rustling through the dry branches. Fuchs stood alone near a bridge, his eyes constantly scanning the area as if waiting for someone. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. His voice was low, nearly a whisper, but thanks to specialized equipment, the police managed to record the entire conversation. He was instructing someone, a person he referred to as "my guy," to come meet him at that very spot. On the other end, the subordinate immediately followed orders, leaving his current location and heading in Fuxi's direction. His steps were slow but steady, with no suspicion of what awaited him. The two officers continued their surveillance. One of them leaned in and whispered, "I'll make the first move. You stay ready to back me up." Without another word, the officer quietly took off his outer uniform, now disguised in a plain t-shirt, to blend in as a regular civilian. He staggered out from the bushes, body swaying as if drunk, an act carefully rehearsed. He made his way toward the two men just as they began their discussion. Mumbling incoherently, he stopped right in front of them, slurring, "Hey, got a smoke?" "Just a cigarette, man." Fuchs' brow furrowed. Suspicion lit up in his eyes. This stranger, completely unknown, had shown up at the worst possible moment, just when he was about to discuss something serious. His instincts screamed danger. He took a cautious step back. Meanwhile, the underling, unsuspecting and unconcerned, reached into his pocket to pull out a cigarette for the drunk stranger. But in that precise moment, with swift, practiced movement, the officer grabbed the man's wrist and locked it with expert precision. In the blink of an eye, the subordinate was restrained and pinned to the ground, unable to react. It all happened so fast, so unexpectedly. Fuchs froze. His eyes widened in shock and fear. Without a second thought, he turned and fled into the night. The moment Fuchs turned to run, the second police officer, still hidden in the bushes, sprang into action. Without hesitation, he gave chase down the narrow, slippery dirt path, winding through the deserted outskirts. Under the dim glow of scattered streetlights, the two figures, one chasing, one fleeing, moved like flickering shadows twisting through the night. Fuchs was panicking. He ran while constantly glancing back over his shoulder. He knew, if he got caught now, everything would collapse. The plan, the entire network, and worse, the person behind it all would be exposed. In a last-ditch act of desperation, driven by pure survival instinct, Fuchs dove into a patch of tall grass, tumbled a few times, and lay completely still. The overgrown brush reached above his knees, providing enough cover to block him from view. Sweat streamed down his forehead. He tried to suppress his breath, holding it as much as possible, not daring to move. The pursuing officer swept past the trail, flashlight beams slicing through the darkness. He paused, scanning the area intensely. Minutes passed. Eventually, the officer had no choice but to retreat back toward the road, radioing in for backup from headquarters. At the same time, the two officers already on site escorted Fuxi's captured accomplice back to the station for further questioning. Still hidden, Fuchs remained completely still until the last glimmer of light disappeared and the sound of footsteps faded into silence. Then, with a clenched jaw, he slammed his hand into the ground in frustration, cursing under his breath. His eyes burned with rage. He growled to himself, "They won't stop me. I'll get to Dieuhan no matter what it takes." That morning, in a small suburban market where Dieuhan often went to buy groceries, a strange figure appeared Fuchs. He moved slowly past each stall, eyes darting around, clearly searching for someone. At that very moment, Dieuhan, as usual, was picking out some vegetables and fish for lunch, unaware that danger was lurking so close. Suddenly, from a distance, her eyes caught a familiar silhouette, Fuchs. In that split second, her entire body froze. Then, without thinking, Dieuhan spun around and bolted. she weaved through narrow alleyways, ducking behind stalls, desperately trying to lose him. Meanwhile, Diệu Han had just returned from a long business trip. The moment he stepped back into the city, he didn't stop to rest. He headed straight for Dieuhan's house. His car pulled up at the small alleyway. The door flung open, and Diệu Han rushed inside. But the scene that met his eyes made his heart drop. The house was in complete disarray. Furniture scattered, chairs overturned, the curtain torn, and muddy footprints tracked across the floor. This once warm and cozy home now looked as if it had been ransacked by some unseen fury. The silence was chilling. An ominous sense of dread weighed heavily on every step Diệu Han took. His eyes reddened with worry and helplessness. With nothing else he could do, he quietly stepped out of the familiar house. He returned to his car, slumped into the driver's seat, his heart burning with anxiety. Elsewhere, Tan and Dieuhan had begun their own search. They combed through every place Dieuhan used to frequent, asking questions, following even the smallest of leads. Exhausted but relentless, they refused to give up. Now everyone was focused on one haunting question. Was Phuc truly the mastermind? Or was there another force more dangerous and insidious, pulling the strings from the shadows like a sinister game of chess? Where was Dieuhan? Would she escape the tightening web closing in around her? Would the truth finally come to light or remain forever buried beneath layers of dark conspiracy?
Cùng lúc đó, Thế Anh vừa kết thúc chuyến công tác dài ngày. Ngay khi đặt chân về đến thành phố, không kịp nghỉ ngơi, anh lao thẳng tới nhà của Uyên. Chiếc xe ô tô dừng lại trước con ngõ nhỏ, cánh cửa mở ra. Thế Anh bước nhanh vào nhà, nhưng cảnh tượng trước mắt khiến tim anh thắt lại. Mọi thứ bên trong đều hỗn loạn, đồ đạc rơi vãi, ghế đổ nghiêng, tấm rèm cửa bị xé rách, còn sàn nhà lấm tấm dấu chân. Căn nhà từng ấm áp giờ như bị bới tung lên bởi cơn thịnh nộ vô hình. Không gian tĩnh lặng đến lạnh người, như một linh cảm không lành đang đè nặng lên từng bước chân Thế Anh. Đôi mắt anh đỏ lên đầy lo âu và bất lực, không biết làm gì hơn. Anh quay lại, lặng lẽ rời khỏi căn nhà quen thuộc. Anh trở về xe, ngồi lặng trong khoang lái, lòng như lửa đốt. Trong khi đó, Thành và Diệu Hân cũng bắt đầu lao vào cuộc tìm kiếm. Họ đến từng khu vực Duyên hay lui tới, dò hỏi, lần theo những manh mối nhỏ nhất. Dù mệt mỏi, cả hai vẫn không bỏ cuộc. Tất cả giờ đây đều hướng về một câu hỏi lớn: Phúc có thật sự là kẻ chủ mưu, hay đằng sau hắn có một thế lực khác, nguy hiểm và âm thầm hơn, đang điều khiển mọi thứ như một ván cờ tàn? Uyên đang ở đâu? Liệu cô có thoát khỏi lưới trời đang giăng bẫy xung quanh? Liệu sự thật rồi có được phơi bày, hay sẽ mãi mãi được vùi lấp dưới những âm mưu tăm tối?